What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer, taking a look, an updated list of my Invoked Generator Dogmatika. This is a really weird list, because this is the list I use in real life, because it's kind of the cards I have laying around, and I don't feel like spending a bunch of money on Yu-Gi-Oh right now. So yeah, I'll talk about what like kind of the obvious choices you can change. I'll talk about some of the things that you should keep in, and then we'll just go from there. So of course you're gonna run 3 Alistair the Invoker. That's just pretty standard stuff, I would imagine. 3 Ecclesia. So what I would actually do if Nadir's Servant came to 3, which it should. There's literally no reason why this is on 2 on the list. It makes no sense. Is drop 1 Ecclesia and add a Nadir's Servant, because if you use Nadir's Servant and you send Tri-Brigade Fairjeet, that lets you search out Maximus. And then Maximus can, obviously after using the effect of Fairjeet to maybe get a better card in your hand if you have one of your bricks, right? But if in any case you don't, maybe you draw into something better. But really what you're really trying to do is you banish this, and then you can send Shurag. So when Shurag's sent to the graveyard, it lets you out a DD Crow, which is actually a pretty good card right now. It's usually just a good card in general, like everybody uses their graveyard. If you think of Chaos Ruler, when it comes back to make Hot Red Archfiend, like that's a huge move that you can make. And that's kind of the idea, right? So it's a really nice play. It's really I'm sure I'm not the first person to ever discover this, but yeah, if you send Fairjeet, banish it, and then send Shurag afterwards with Maximus, you get a free plus, which could be either just DD Crow, which DD Crow is a good card, or it could be discard fodder for Makaba if you don't need it. So it's usually good to use in play 1 after you side it, even if it's not the best in the matchup. Maximus, Fleur, so these are obviously just interruptions. Maximus obviously is used to the to its maximum ability. It's just unfortunate that Despia is so good, because I feel like this deck has a decent matchup against almost every deck in the format right now, because you are playing so many hand traps. But it's just horrible against Albaz, obviously. So what are you gonna do? It could just be an extra body, and sometimes it really, like if you're playing some of the more like Predaplant versions of Despia or Eldritch, in my experience, it's not the worst thing, because they usually have a very small package for Albaz. So if you force them to send cards to the graveyard, they may not have cards. Like, yes, they'll send Albion, but how many copies of Albion do they have? Now, if you're playing pure branded Despia, which in my opinion is the best, yeah, you're screwed, unfortunately. But yeah, hopefully you can have like something like Ash for Fallen of Albaz, or Branded Fusion, I should say. 3 Ash Blossom. I don't think I need to explain that. 3 DD Crow. I think it's just really good right now. I have 1 Droll and Lockbird that I found, so I play 1 Droll and Lockbird. And 3 Effect Veiler. This is also just, it's pretty good. It's good against Despia. DD Crow and Effect Veiler are not bad. But if they activate Branded in red and you chain DD Crow to banish their tragedy, of course you're giving them advantage. But otherwise, like most of the time, again, like those weirder versions, like there's some cool stuff that you can do. I actually do like to run Pankratops. I think it's like a nice surprise card. It's obviously just a one of. Plenty of situations where your opponent clears your board. One of the situations I can think of, like there's plenty of times where I've had 2 Generator monsters on the board, and he activates the effect of Mirror Jade, and I tribute both like of my Generator monsters. Normally it's Utgarda and Har. And I kind of like, I negate that, and then when Mirror Jade goes to the graveyard, obviously, it destroys all monsters in the end phase. So there's like other times where this is live when you're going first too. It just kind of depends. But it can be good too, like if you just set it up and you don't need it, you can just keep it on the fort. It's literally just a quick effect pop. Now it does obviously tribute and it gets lost, but it's still a good card, especially at 2600 attack body. It can do a lot of pretty cool stuff for you. Call by the Grave is obviously just a very awesome card in general. It's good against hand traps because you're playing some pretty generic searchers, right? Everyone's going to be ashing your Alistairs, effect veilering your Ecclesia. It's one of the advantages of this deck though, because if you have Alistair and Dogmatika, like when you're playing a combo deck, not all of them, not like Dragon Link, sometimes P.U.N.K. If they get the Ash at the right time, your play's done. It's not really like that for this deck. There's it just comes from a lot of different places, especially when you think about, your Generator stuff. So, you're running 3 Generator boss stage. This card's just really good. Oh, sorry, I skipped over this too. So I'm running Har, I'm running the boss of Ice, and I'm running Utgarda. You do want these to be 3 different ones, because you can't special summon the same one out, or one that's already on the field. So this is the one that usually comes out last. It prevents the special summon. Again, it's very bad against Albaz, which sucks so bad. This is good against Albaz because when it comes to fusion summoning decks, if you can just stop them from fusion summoning, obviously they're not playing. It's a very one-dimensional type of strategy. I can't think of any time that you would use. You'd probably end up literally like side this out. You could run 2, but there's been so many times where I've needed to go to the 3rd turn, and like these are on the board. And, like, you need those tokens, so you need options, and it's also pretty nice to go for rank 9s. Later in the duel, it's cool that Makabas are rank 9. In case you don't have anything in your hand, right, and you want to disrupt your opponent. Maybe pitch one of their last cards in their hand, because if this card comes out, Bathnir, let's just call it, then you're in a pretty good spot, of course. So yeah, Called by the Grave, 3 Generator, boss stage. Harpies, Feather Duster has to be in the main, or it could be anything, but I like to play Harpies because it's more impactful. But Mystic Mine is just too common in the main deck. Played a match against Sky Striker the other day, and I literally won game 1. They just kept passing, thinking I was going to deck out, and then I hit them with Harpy Feather Duster, and then I just went for game. I only run Invocation. I've never really understood the reason for running 2, but people do. I don't. I think it's fine at 1. If it gets disrupted, like, that's fine. Like 90% of the time, it's always good at 1 to me. It's not really something you want to see in your opening hand. I run 1 Magical Meltdown because I do run 1 Terraforming. So if you open boss stage, because there's 6 cards in your deck for boss stage, right off the bat, either you hard draw it or you can do boss fight. So if you have it, then you can search Meltdown. I cannot recommend you do this enough. It's super necessary. Or you just open Meltdown and you use it. It's a 4th copy of Alistair. So you kind of have 5 copies, a little bit. But it's not something that you want to top deck. So you don't want to play multiple copies of it, because if you have boss stage, like, you're really put in a tough position. Do you want the extra monster with boss stage? Or do you want Alistair? You kind of have to decide. 2 Nadir Servant, of course. Dogmatika Punishment. So I run the full Dogmatika package, whatever you want to call that. I talk about boss fight. I go back and forth in this card all the time. It's decent. It's definitely decent. It obviously triggers boss stage, but it gives your opponent so many cards. So hopefully you have enough disruption. I can only find 1 Imperm, so I have 1 Imperm in my deck. So I do run 3 Solemn Strike, and this protects your, like, boss stage. Like, if they try to Ash it and you hit it with Solemn Strike, it's really not a bad trade, because you get a lot of advantage off of boss stage, of course. Yeah, I don't know. It's so bad, again, against Albaz. But everything else, like this card, it wins you duels because it can't be responded to. Your opponent's not going to play around Solemn Strike because no one's playing it right now. And it's obviously such a powerful card. And you're already running so many hand traps, like pretty much the standard amount in any kind of like meta deck that can play hand traps, that I feel like it's the extra cherry on top. It has been for me. I've considered switching out with Solemn Strike, but the fact that it protects your boss stage is like too important to me. So that's why I play this card. Onto the side, 3 Nibiru. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. Dark Row No More. Again, I think it's pretty good against Despia. Twin Twisters. This could be Cosmic Cyclone, of course. Twin Twisters is terrible against this deck specifically. It kills it. Dimensional Barrier, no surprises. And then Summon Limit. So I try my best on the side to compete it against Albaz. That's pretty much what the whole point of this is. Summon Limit kills the deck 100,000%. Definitely can't play around it. It's very bad for them. And this is just a turn skipper because all they do is Fusion Summon. Extra deck is kind of wacky, but it's fun, and it does work. It's like a big utility. I don't run any of the pot of cards because I want to be able to use every card in my extra deck to win me duels, and that's kind of how it works out a lot of the time. So you need to run 2 Elders. You just do. Like, you're going to need multiple pops. I can't, like, this card as well, I can't stress enough. Invoked, I never know how to say it, but Agodes. It's a really bad version of DP, but it's still decent. It's like Kroger brand DP. Every time your opponent special summons a monster, you get to pop it. I lost a match last night because I didn't play this card, and it would have easily have won me the duel. So don't underestimate it. And a lot of the times you're going to be sending a lot of fusion monsters to the to the graveyard and off of Maximus, so you can have fuel for it or the summon material for it, either one. I like to run Elysium because it's another one of those cards that your opponent's not going to play through. It also just gives you more options, because if you just keep adding Alistair to your hand, your opponent doesn't stop it. like most of the time they'll run out of options, which is like bad and not good. So I like to play this card. It's not bad because it can be a quick effect Dark Banishment if Alistair's in the graveyard, which of course is something that you'd want to do. Macabre, I don't have to explain that. Purgatrio. I run Raijin because I do run one Droll and Lockbird, but you can also send something like Ad Ignister if you don't have any use out of it, or your opponent's playing wind monsters. They're pretty popular right now, fairly popular. I think Fleur is a wind, so that's where this comes from. And Titan Cloud the Ash Dragon. Omega is good because it can give you an infinite loop of Elders. That's pretty much what the point is, right? You send both of them together. Omega sends it back, so next turn you can pop. And it's just good for facilitating a lot of things because you get to just send things back into your deck. One Pegasus Ad Ignister. I used to run 2 of these, but yeah, I've never needed 2 of them pretty much. It just has never really come up. Not enough for me to play it in my extra deck. I talked about Enter Bathnir, 9s, and Almirage, Secure Guard, enough for Alistair the Invoker, and I talked about Fergie, and I talked about Shurag, which can eventually add you DD Crow, but Fergie most of the time is used just to send these guys back because, Generator boss stage has to summon from the deck, and that's the best way to do it. Now, if you had, like, Magician Souls, or the Chaos Illusion Magician, whatever it's called, that searches Magician Souls, you could also use that. There's just not enough spells and traps, or especially ones that you'd want to send, with Magician Souls, so you can't really play it. And Nadir Servant is like the next best thing, if not significantly better, just in general. So yeah, that's an updated list for this Invoked deck. I've been playing a lot of it on Ranked on Dueling Book. You can check those matches out on my YouTube channel. But other than that, that's going to do it for today's video, and I will see you guys next time.